Imagine an 8-year-old girl in a dusty black and white dress and an oversized brown vest, her tiny cowboy hat tilted against the blazing Arizona sun, abandoned in the heart of Apache territory by the only family she had left. One cruel shove from the wagon, one heartless goodbye, and little Lily Rose Tanner is left to die in the summer of 1885. But the desert that was meant to swallow her instead delivers her into the arms of a fierce Apache warrior who risks everything to protect her. What begins as terror becomes the most unexpected bond the frontier has ever seen, and leads to a showdown, redemption, and a new name whispered around campfires. Tsitsi Yaji, the little girl who refused to disappear. Will a child's courage rewrite the rules of a brutal land? Stay until the very last second. You won't believe how this ends. Drop a comment. Where are you watching from tonight? Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. This one will stay with you long after the credits roll. Let's ride into the story together. The summer of 1885 pressed down on southern Arizona like a branding iron. Heat shimmered off the red sand in glassy waves, turning the horizon into a furnace haze. A rickety wagon creaked along the faint ruts of the old Butterfield Trail, its canvas top scorched almost white, iron tires grinding over stone. Inside the wagon bed, 8-year-old Lily Rose Tanner sat with her knees drawn up, tiny black and white gingham dress already gray with dust, her late father's brown vest hanging to her shins like a tent. A child-sized Stetson, sun-bleached and sweat-stained, sat crooked on her copper curls. She clutched a rag doll named Button and a canteen that sloshed only half full. Jeb Tanner stood in the box, reined slack in one hand, a half-empty bottle of rye in the other. His eyes were bloodshot, cheeks spider-webbed with broken veins. He yanked the mules to a stop beside a lone saguaro whose arms pointed at the sky like a warning. "Get down!" Lily's heart kicked. "Uncle Jeb, I said get." He climbed down, boots raising little puffs of alkali. When she didn't move fast enough, he grabbed her arm and hauled her over the wheel. She landed hard, knees scraping on gravel. The vest swallowed her whole. Only her face and 2 small boots showed beneath it. Jeb tossed her canvas knapsack after her. It hit the dirt with a dull thud. 1 spare dress, 3 sticks of jerked beef, a bent harmonica, and the silver bracelet her mother had worn the day the fever took her. "You ain't my blood, just a bill I've been paying too long," he rasped. "Apache'll finish what the desert starts. One less mouth." Lily's voice came out small and cracked. "Please, Uncle Jeb, I'll be good. I'll walk behind the wagon so I don't slow the mules." He spat to the side, climbed back into the box, and snapped the reins. The wagon lurched forward. Dust boiled up, stinging her eyes. She ran after it, little legs pumping, vest flapping like broken wings. "Uncle Jeb, don't leave me!" The wagon never slowed. Within minutes, it was only a dark speck against the molten sky, then nothing at all. Silence crashed in, thicker than the heat. A buzzard circled overhead, black wings motionless on the updraft. Lily stood alone in a bowl of stone and sand that stretched to every horizon. The sun hammered the crown of her hat. Sweat glued curls to her cheeks. She looked down at the knapsack, at Button's button eyes staring up through the dust, and felt something inside her chest crack wide open. But Lily Rose Tanner had listened to her daddy's stories around too many campfires. She knew the words he'd whispered the night the outlaw shot him off his horse. "When the world tries to bury you, little girl, you dig back." She wiped her nose on the oversized sleeve, squared her narrow shoulders, and started walking west, toward the only scrap of shade she could see, a jagged outcrop of rock 3 miles off, wavering in the heat like a mirage. The canteen sloshed with every step, counting down the hours she had left. Behind her, the wagon ruts faded under the wind. Ahead, the desert waited, patient and merciless. and high on a red mesa, unseen, a quarter-mile away, a lone Apache rider sat his paint pony in perfect stillness, dark eyes tracking the tiny figure in the black and white dress as she marched straight into the furnace. The desert had claimed grown men in less than a day. It had never met Lily Rose Tanner. The mesa rider watched until the child's footprints were almost lost in the glare. Then he turned his pony and vanished into the heat shimmer like smoke. For 3 days, Lily walked in the furnace. The first afternoon, she found a shallow tanaja after rain, drank until her stomach hurt, then filled the canteen and soaked her dress to keep cool. The second day, the water was gone, and the jerked beef was hard as saddle leather. She chewed it anyway, spitting gristle into the dust. At night, she curled beneath creosote bushes, whispering to Button so the coyotes wouldn't hear her cry. By the third sunset, the desert had stripped her down to bone and will. Lips split, eyes swollen, the little black and white dress hanging in rags off her shoulders, the oversized vest dragging like a horse blanket. She stumbled on, hat low, one boot sole flapping loose. On the fourth morning, she crested a low rise and saw the bones. Bleached cattle skulls, broken wagon wheels, a child's shoe no bigger than her own. The sight punched the last wind out of her. She sank to her knees in the hot sand, clutching Button to her chest. "Daddy said dig back," she whispered, voice raw as a file. "But I'm too little to dig." That was when the shadow fell across her. She looked up. A man on a painted horse blocked the sun. Buckskin leggings, calico shirt open at the throat, one eagle feather tied in his long black hair. A Henry rifle lay across his thighs, but the muzzle pointed at the sky. His face was young, hard-planed, scarred along one cheekbone. He studied her the way a man studies a wounded fawn, deciding whether mercy is worth the risk. Lily tried to stand, legs shaking. The hat slipped. She caught it with both hands. "I ain't scared of you," she lied. The Apache swung down in one fluid motion. Up close, he smelled of horse sweat, juniper smoke, and something sharp like sage after lightning. He crouched, elbows on knees, and spoke in careful English edged with Spanish mission school. "Water?" She nodded, afraid to hope. He unstoppered a rawhide flask and held it to her cracked lips. Cool water slid down her throat like forgiveness. When she'd drunk enough, he capped it, then reached out and straightened the crooked Stetson with 2 fingers, almost gently. "Kashan," he said, tapping his chest. "Lily Rose Tanner," she answered, chin high. "But folks just call me Lily." He rose, offered his hand. She took it. His palm was calloused, warm, steady. He lifted her onto the horse as if she weighed nothing, settled behind her, and turned the pony toward the Dragoon Mountains, rising purple in the distance. They rode until the stars came out, sharp as broken glass. Kashan never spoke again until he reined up on a ridge overlooking a hidden canyon. Below, cook fires glowed like scattered coals. Teepees and brush wickiups huddled against the cliff. Dogs barked once, then fell silent. Lily felt every eye turn upward as they descended the switchback. Women paused with water jars on their heads. Children melted behind their mothers' skirts. Warriors stepped from the shadows, rifles half raised. An old man with silver braids and a face carved by 70 winters walked forward. He and Kashan spoke rapidly in Chiricahua. Lily caught only one word repeated like a drumbeat. "White child." The elder's gaze pinned her where she sat. Kashan answered, voice low, fierce. The old man spat a single syllable that sounded like a judge's gavel. 2 warriors moved to pull Lily down. Kashan's arm tightened across her chest, protective. He said something that made the rifles lower a fraction. Then he slid from the horse, lifted Lily, and set her on the ground in front of the firelight. She swayed, legs numb. He drew his knife, laid the blade flat against his own throat, and spoke to the entire camp in a voice that carried to the canyon walls. "If this child brings harm, I will die first. My life for hers." Silence. Wind moaned through the cottonwoods. Then the elder gave one curt nod. Kashan sheathed the knife, took Lily's small hand, and led her through the ring of staring faces toward his wickiup. She glanced back once. The fire painted every Apache face bronze and unforgiving. She squeezed his fingers tighter. "I ain't scared," she whispered again. This time, Kashan almost smiled. The first week inside the canyon felt like walking the edge of a blade. Lily slept on a bedroll beside Kashan's fire, the oversized vest folded as a pillow, her cowboy hat hung on a peg like a trophy. Every dawn, the camp stirred with purpose, women grinding corn between stones, boys practicing with miniature bows, warriors sharpening knives that caught the light like shards of ice. Eyes followed her everywhere, cold, measuring, waiting for the white child to betray them. She kept her head high and her mouth shut, the way her daddy taught when riding through hostile towns. She started small. When the old woman hauled water from the spring, she dragged a gourd half her size and spilled most of it, but she kept going back. When a toddler wandered too close to the fire, she snatched him by his beaded shirt and earned a grudging nod from his mother. Day by day, the stares softened from knives to questions. One blistering noon, a boy no older than 6 screamed outside the wickiups. A sidewinder had struck his ankle. The leg was already swelling purple. The medicine woman was 3 canyons away gathering roots. Panic rippled through the camp. Lily pushed through the circle, knelt in the dust, and did what her mother had done for drifters back in Texas. Slit the fang marks with Kashan's knife, sucked hard and spat, then packed the wound with prickly pear pulp and creosote leaves she'd watched the women use. The boy's fever broke by nightfall. After that, children trailed her like sparrows. Kashan watched from the shade, arms folded, pride flickering behind the stone of his face. He began taking her out at dawn on a shaggy gray pony. He taught her to read the desert's handwriting, how a broken mesquite twig pointed the way deer traveled, how lizard tracks crossing boot prints meant a white man had passed within hours. He set up rawhide targets and put a child-sized bow in her hands. Her first arrow wobbled like a drunk bee and buried itself in the sand. By the end of the moon, she could pink the target 9 times out of 10. Evenings around the fire, the old ones told stories of monster slayer and changing woman. Lily listened wide-eyed, then offered her own. Jack and the Beanstalk, Paul Bunyan, the Headless Horseman. The children leaned in, terrified and delighted, until their mothers hushed them to bed. Kashan translated when her English outran their understanding, his deep voice rolling the strange words like river stones. 6 weeks slid by. The black and white dress had been cut down into a tunic and leggings. The brown vest now fit like it was made for her. Only the little Stetson remained, sweat-ringed and proud. Far away, in the smoky haze of Tombstone's Oriental Saloon, Jeb Tanner slammed down a reward poster. $300 gold coin for the safe return of one Lily Rose Tanner, aged 8, taken by hostile Apache. He didn't mention whose hand had pushed her off the wagon. 5 hard cases, led by a scar-faced gunman named Silas Crow, took the job, eyes gleaming at the easy money. Back in the canyon, no one knew yet. Life had found a rhythm. Lily Rose, the white ghost, had become simply Lily Rose, the kid who could outrun half the boys and make the old women laugh with her terrible Chiricahua accent. One night, Kashan found her on the ridge above camp, staring east, where heat lightning flickered over the desert she'd crossed. "You miss the wagon road?" he asked quietly. she thought hard, thumb rubbing the silver bracelet that no longer slipped off her wrist. "No," she said at last. "I miss being wanted. Here, folks want me to stay." Kashan rested a hand on her shoulder, light as a hawk landing. "Then stay." She leaned into his palm, small fingers fierce. "If this chapter's already pulling at something inside you, do me one small favor. Hit that subscribe button down below. There are thousands of us riding these old trails together, and I'd hate for you to miss what comes next, because the storm that's been brewing out on the plain is fixing to break right over this canyon, and little Lily's about to discover that being wanted can turn into the most dangerous thing of all." The sky was still the color of cold iron when the first rifle cracked. A sentry's body tumbled from the rimrock, arrow through the throat. Before the echo died, 5 riders burst from the mouth of the canyon, Silas Crow in the lead, hat brim pinned up with a rattlesnake skin. They came shooting, Winchesters spitting fire, bullets whining off stone like angry hornets. The camp exploded into chaos. Women snatched children. Dogs streaked between legs. Warriors rolled from blankets aside and came up with rifles already loaded. Kashan was out of his wiki-up in 2 strides. Lily, a heartbeat behind him, bow clutched in both small fists. "Stay low," he barked, shoving her toward the rocks. But Lily had already seen the little ones trapped near the horse corral as a gunman rode straight at them. She sprinted, boots skidding on gravel, vest flapping like a crow's wings. Crow's men fanned out, torches arcing through the air. TPs caught like paper. A woman screamed as flames licked her hair. Kashan dropped the first rider with a single shot through the chest. The man pitched sideways, foot caught in stirrup, horse dragging him in a red furrow. Lily reached the children, herded them behind an overturned wagon. A bullet splintered the plank inches from her hat brim. She knocked an arrow the way Kashan had drilled into her 100 times, drew until the stave creaked, and let fly. The shaft punched through a gunman's wrist. His Colt spun away, and he howled, clutching the feathered stick. Another rider charged the corral fence. Lily saw the glint of a familiar face under a sweat-stained hatband. Jeb Tanner, red-eyed and unshaven, riding with the killers he'd hired. Their eyes locked across 50 yards of smoke and dust. His mouth opened in shock. "Lily!" She didn't answer. She was already moving. Kashan vaulted a burning brush shelter, knife flashing. He and Crow met in the open space by the central fire pit. Steel rang on steel. Sparks flew brighter than the flames. Crow was bigger, heavier, but Kashan fought like mountain wind. Low, fast, relentless. A pistol butt smashed into Kashan's ribs. He grunted yet spun inside the blow, blade slicing across Crow's thigh. Blood sheeted down the gunman's boot. Jeb reined in, face slack with terror. "Lily, girl, come here. I come to save you." She stepped from behind the wagon, bow lowered, but arrow still knocked. The little black and white tunic was soot-streaked. Her Stetson sat square now, no longer crooked. "You left me to die, Uncle Jeb." Her voice carried clear over the gunfire, steady as a church bell. "These people gave me water when I had none. They gave me a name when I had none. You gave me nothing but sand." Jeb's mouth worked soundlessly. Behind him, Crow staggered, clutching his leg. Kashan's knife hovered at the gunman's throat. A final volley rattled from the canyon mouth, the last 2 hired guns trying to flee. Apache arrows found them before they cleared the bend. Horses screamed and went down in a tangle of dust and blood. Silence fell, broken only by crackling fires and the low moaning of the wounded. Crow dropped to his knees, hands raised. Jeb slid from his saddle like a sack of grain, knees hitting the dirt. Lily walked forward until she stood over him. 8 years old, smaller than his shadow, yet the look in her eyes made the grown man shrink. "I ain't going back," she said. "Not ever. Kashan stepped beside her, blood on his blade, chest heaving. He rested one hand on her shoulder, not restraining, simply claiming. Jeb stared at the hand, then at the ring of Apache rifles now pointed at his head, and understood the arithmetic of the morning. The sun cleared the eastern rim, spilling hard gold across the smoking camp. Lily Rose Tanner stood in its light, tiny cowboy hat, throwing a long shadow that reached all the way to the man who had tried to erase her. The desert had spoken. 3 days after the smoke cleared, a cavalry patrol out of Fort Bowie rode into the canyon under a white flag. The lieutenant's eyes widened at the sight of a white child in Apache dress standing between two warriors, but he kept his manners. Kashan handed over the prisoners. Crow with his leg splinted and face gray from blood loss. Jeb trussed like a turkey, still babbling about ransom and mistaken identity. Lily stepped forward and gave her statement in a voice that didn't shake once. The lieutenant wrote it all down, word for word, then saluted her as if she were twice his age. They took Jeb away in irons. 10 years of hard labor at Yuma Territorial Prison for attempted murder and false report. Crow and the one surviving gun hand got 20 each. The desert swallowed the rest. Autumn crept into the high canyons. Nights turned knife cold. Cottonwoods along the creek blazed gold. The women stitched Lily a new set of clothes, soft doeskin tunic, beaded leggings, moccasins that fit like gloves. They left the little Stetson alone. It had earned its place. On the night of the first hard frost, the entire band gathered on the ridge above camp. A fire burned low and steady. The old medicine woman painted Lily's cheeks with red earth and yellow pollen, singing the song that welcomes a child, born of the people, even when she was born far away. Kashan stood before the fire and spoke the words that could not be taken back. This day, the girl once called Lily Rose Tanner dies in the white man's world. From the ashes rises Tsitsi Yaji, little daughter of the Chiricahua. He slipped a narrow silver cuff onto her wrist, hammered turquoise lightning, hawk in flight. The metal was still warm from the forge. Around them, the drums started, slow as a heartbeat, then faster. Women ululated, children danced, warriors fired rifles into the star-drunk sky. Tsitsi Yaji stood in the center of it all, 8 years old and suddenly taller than the mountains. Winter came and went. Snow dusted the peaks, the creek iced along the edges. She learned to track mule deer through pinon, to call quail with a blade of grass, to sit silent for hours while Kashan taught her the names of every star. When spring returned, the wildflowers exploded across the canyon floor like God had spilled his paint box. She rode her own paint pony now, bow across the saddle, hair braided with eagle feathers she had earned. One morning in early summer, nearly a year to the day she had been shoved from the wagon, Kashan took her to the highest point of the dragoon's spine. Below them, the canyon lay green and secret, smoke from cook fires rising straight in the still air. Far to the east, the desert shimmered, endless and indifferent. Kashan pointed to a faint scar across the sand, the old wagon road, already half erased by wind. "That world tried to kill you," he said. "This one chose to keep you." Tsitsi Yaji adjusted her Stetson, the brim now fitting perfectly, no longer slipping over her eyes. She looked out over the land that had once been her grave and was now her kingdom. "I wasn't too little to dig after all," she said. Kashan's rare smile broke like sunrise. "No, little hawk, you were just digging in the right direction." They turned their ponies down the trail toward home. Behind them, the desert kept its ancient silence, but ahead the canyon rang with children's laughter and the steady heartbeat of drums. Somewhere far away, in a stone cell that smelled of river rot and regret, Jeb Tanner stared at the bars, and understood, at last, what he had thrown away. Out here, under a sky wide enough to hold every broken promise ever made, a thrown-away child had become the one thing the frontier could never buy or steal: family. And the Dragoon Mountains kept the secret, the way mountains always keep the secrets of the strong. The fires burned low, the canyons gone quiet, and little Tsitsiyaji is finally sleeping safe under Chiricahua stars. A child the world threw away became the heart of a nation that chose to keep her. Sometimes the cruelest desert gives birth to the strongest roots. Drop a comment and tell me, could you have forgiven Jeb? Would you have stayed in that canyon forever? I read every single one. Your thoughts keep these old trails alive. Until the next ride, keep your powder dry and your heart open. Because out here, the smallest soul can still change everything. See you on the next story, partners. Safe trails.